I do want to pause here and talk about Louis Vuitton under Virgil Abloh, because it was a weird time. And after he passed, things went as they do, which is everyone kind of gets the rosiest picture of that person and their work and all that stuff. But at the time, there was a lot of hand wringing, a lot of whining, rightly or wrongly, about both the appointment of Abloh to start off with and just reactions to his work more generally in his time at the house. And I'm curious where you land here. If we set aside the fact that he was an incredibly important person in fashion, that it's sad that he's not around anymore, in all honesty, where are you at on Abloh?
Well, kind of similar to Kim Jones. I think his work at Louis Vuitton was his best work.
True.
I think that, I mean, honestly, I did think that a lot of those pieces were sick as hell. And, I think that there's a lot of, sometimes when there's discussion about like high fashion, there's like a lot of like pretentious talk about like, oh, this is this or this is that, yada, yada, yada. I think there were a lot of pieces that were sick as hell. And keeping in mind, because of Louis Vuitton, kind of how they structure the brand, all of the pieces are like S tier in terms of quality, like above like Balenciaga, above like Prada. They just make them ludicrously nice and extraordinarily expensive. So like the pieces were incredible.
Yeah, it's like that. It's at that tier. I feel like at the very, very top is like Hermes or whatever, and then just right below that, you've got a lot of the Louis Vuitton stuff.
What I think, honestly, I think that when they were decided to make clothes, I imagine they specifically were shooting for like Hermes levels, Hermes, because their prices like are similar. It's like $3,000 for a pair of jeans, and if you ever see them IRL, it's like it's the nicest clothes you ever did see. But like I said, they make the clothes to sell the bags. That's the point.
Yeah,
never liked. Oh, we got something. Majora.
I was just gonna say, Majora Market never liked Off-White much. I think Virgil's LV was his best too. I think we're all in agreement there that he stepped up to the gig. You can say whatever you want about Off-White or, God forbid, like Ben Trill or whatever before that.
I will.
And
Pyrex Vision, more like. Let's talk about Pyrex Vision,
please. But he stepped into it, and I mean, there was, of course, always stuff that he was doing that I would kind of cringe at, but there were always some like legitimate jaw droppers in there that I didn't know he had in him before he started there, honestly.
Yeah, and I will point out what it has been said. Like Virgil, it seems, would get DMs from young artists and creators, and then whoopsie daisy, those designs got stolen.
Oh yeah.
And I did make a video, I guess 2 years ago, talking about the collection that was awfully very similar to what's his name, Berndonk's, like a collection he did. So check out Brave New Wear. Look for that video.
I will say on Low Luxury channel, there's also a similar thing. I did a full breakdown of all the like at the time claims of plagiarism against him and kind of looked into them. And it's weird because I think we can both have a feather in our cap there, because it's not really the type of video that anyone's clamoring to make these days. So it is kind of a testament, a product of its time. You know what I mean?
It really is.
Yeah.
But I always try to be like devil's advocate about that kind of thing, because like one of the first videos I ever made was talking about Virgil, and I was specifically talking about what does he do well, because there was a reason before even Louis Vuitton at Off-White that he was so hot. And I recount basically a situation where his like assistant emailed me, and they were trying to get like this beautiful like Dior Homme coat. And for what it's worth, anybody I know who has interacted with Virgil, he was an extremely nice person, and gave his time freely. So
yeah, that's the one thing. When he passed, of course, I made a video about it, and I remember like almost embarrassingly now looking back, kind of like I teared up at the end. And the thing that made me tear up was thinking of all the up and coming designers that would not have him there to lift them up in the future. Because it was one thing he was legitimately very good at, was giving himself to people, seemingly, you know?
Yeah. And I never made a video talking about my thoughts, but one thing, I think two things. I think that there is a void in the fashion space of who the next Virgil will be, i.e., or like
Hmm.
basically who's going to be the next kind of trans dimensional, no, like what's the right word? Trans genre
Yeah.
designer,
Yeah,
artist, person who it was like Virgil, because I think that there's an absence there. And the
for
second part
sure.
of it is, love it or hate him, I think that the fact that he died so young means we'll never know how he would have progressed as a designer, artist, whatever you call him. We would have
Sure.
never known if he would have reached higher heights or completely bombed and become like a laughing stock. And that's something that we'll miss out on. And that is kind of where we were left at. Louis
Yeah.
Vuitton had a very buzzworthy designer
Hmm.
as the creative director, and they picked Virgil in part because Off White was white hot
Yeah.
in high fashion. It sold like crazy, and they
Hmm.
wanted somebody with that kind of stature. And back in the day, Kanye was only like, he wasn't even a Nazi yet, so it was
True.
cool. It was cool that he knew Kanye, and and then when the world needed him the most, he was gone.